Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Harris, and joining us today in the studio is no stranger to the show, Rlene Steffy. She's an ethnographer, oral historian, and a research associate with Micronesian Area Research Center. Most importantly, though, I invited here today because I feel you're something of a kindred spirit.
Oh, thank you. My goodness.
You are a person, I feel, very self-aware. And not only that, but you make connections with people in the work that you do.
Thank you.
And you allow people the platform to share themselves. Tell us a little bit about your work. What do how would you're kind of all over the place with different forms of media, but what are those forms, and what do you feel is the heart of you choosing to do this kind of work?
Good question. Mass communication. The art of communicating, right? Hence the radio. I believe that of all the forms of mass comm, the radio is the most powerful because it allows the theater of the mind to travel. It opens the synapses of the mind so that it can connect and make a memory of something. I'm not one to listen to music. Music doesn't help to stimulate me or make me remember anything. I am not big on eating food. I don't have that kind of memory recall. But interpersonal relationship, if I ever know you, if I ever see you, if I ever decide I want to talk to you,
or interview you,
which is talking to you, you're in my heart forever. Now, that doesn't happen with everyone. Most of the time, I'm assigned a job. It throws me into your line, right? It throws me into your sphere. But on a personal level, I have a very strong sense of, I'm very intuitive about people. And if I have red flags and lights and a whistle going in my head, back off, I will U-turn and walk away from you. If I approach you, I don't need to know you, but if I approach you and the opposite is true, where I feel that there's warmth and interest and I want to know you, then I'm in you. I literally get in you. And you may not know how to deal with that at first, and it's pretty intimidating for some people because like, oh.
Kind of protective. We all try to kind of protect ourselves to a certain degree, especially with people we don't know that well.
Right. And with me, I already know you. I don't need to know anything about you. The fact that I have that sense with you is going to make you safe. I don't know how to explain that.
How do you feel intuition works in the work that you do?
It's critical. For example, if I'm interviewing you, I can tell by watching you, listening to you, and...
You're making me nervous here.
Yes. Determining when exactly you want me to ask a question you know you don't want me to ask. But I already know what I have to ask you.
Now, you had a talk show on K57 for, I believe it was 10 years.
10 years.
And this is kind of what you feel was your job as the host of that show is... Well, I'll let you put it in your own words. What did you feel was your goal in doing these interviews on K57?
The whole reason the interview segment started was so that we could know who was in our community. John Anderson said, you're so good at talking to people and getting them to tell their stories. Why don't you ask people to come in and just do a live interview? No rehearsals. Just do it live. So that was exciting. Because they knew people would listen to it and they would be on the edge of their seats. And then he would say, why do you people come here? She's going to make you cry. So a lot of it developed. It developed into its own personality, and it almost appeared therapeutic for both sides. But it really honed my interviewing skills. And then it gave me, it brought the people to me rather than me having to go to them. And these were either professionals or lay people, or my very first full-blown Chamorro interview was on K57 radio with a woman who spoke nothing of English. Nothing. Her daughter had to translate for her if I couldn't come up with the word in my head. And at the time, I wasn't as articulate in speaking Chamorro, which is beginning. Her name was Tanilena Benaventi, and she was a weaver, a master weaver. I wanted to interview her about her work and how she did her work, and it was a very interesting interview because it was a challenge, but it was a challenge for both of us. Me to speak to her only in Chamorro, and her to try to figure out what I was saying in Chamorro.
Well, you mentioned how these interviews were something of a healing process.
It's very cathartic.
I read a book a couple of years ago called Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Really Am? Mm-hmm. And one of the founding principles of the book was in allowing other people to talk about themselves, you also help them to understand themselves or work through the problems that they're having emotionally. Would you say that's a true statement, or do you feel that that has been your experience?
It is a positive statement of that reality. People think things through. Maybe not thoroughly, okay? But they do think things through. When they hear what they're thinking, they can decide if it's a stupid idea or if it's really something they want to go through. We need to convince each other, but the strongest person to convince you is yourself. And that is your greatest doubt. That little voice that's in your head saying, don't do it, Catherine. No, Catherine, do it. No, Catherine, don't do it. Oh, come on, Catherine, do it. So you go through this internal struggle, and then you have the environmental impact that will raise one of those voices higher than the other. And that's where you get your strength from. So when you're being interviewed or when you're talking to someone who can allow you to empower yourself, I think that's the power of the interview, is that you're going to let go of that, whatever that burden is. Whether you let it go there, the interview, or not is immaterial. You're going to let it go. You might let it go in the car. You might let it go as you walk down the street or the stairs, or you might actually let it go before you even come in the studio. So when do you let it go? It's when you realize, I don't need to hold on to this anymore. Emotional baggage is what holds people back. I'm not a psychologist. That's not my job. I'm just interested in you. And if you're interested in being honest, that makes a better show. So if I'm going to interview you, I will never read about you. I don't ask anybody about you. I want you to tell me who you are. I want you to convey who you are. And when we're done, we're going to have each other's heart. And that's why the interviews are so impacting.
Now, you mentioned that when you reach this point with somebody you've interviewed, you allow them into your heart. You've done a lot of interviews. How do you have space for all these people?
I have a big heart. Easy answer. Everyone's heart is big. It's like your brain. I mean, okay, circumference-wise, it's so big, but the capacity. My kids. I have 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls. Okay, and when you tell the children that as a parent, I don't favor anyone, they don't understand that because they want to be favored. They want to be the favored one, right? But to convey that message, you need to live that. I do not spoil my children. I'm a reward and act. I reward positive actions. Yes, behavior. I do not reward bad behavior. And then you can't beat me into doing it either. I mean, I don't care what you do. You can get mad at me. My son Spencer goes, I don't like you. I hate you. And I said, that's fine.
Spencer's going to love you.
Oh, yeah. He knows there is no host bar here. I said, Spencer, I don't care if you like me or not. I'm your mom. I love you. You love me deeper than any people can. But you owe me respect and gratitude for everything that I provide for you including this discussion, because you're going to remember this forever. So people like to be liked.
True.
It's not necessary for me to be liked, because I know that that's impossible. You can't always like me. And if that's what I live for, then I have to compromise something for that. I'm giving me up for you. Right? You're going to like me for what you decide makes you feel good about me. And you're going to say I intimidate you because I do, because there's something that you're doing that you know I'm going to call you on. And I think that's one of the reasons why I appreciate the one-on-one more than the conference talks or whatever. They're standing behind a podium. Who wants to be the, featured speaker? What does that mean? Why are you a featured speaker? What do you have to say that's so important? Keynote. Why is there a keynote speaker? Is he just there to open up the meeting? Some people take pride in being keynote speakers. I've had many opportunities to be keynote speakers, and I've taken them because it's an opportunity to talk. But if people spoke the truth all the time, Catherine, can you imagine? It's so much easier when you know that somebody doesn't like something than when he pretends he likes something. Because he's going to walk away, I really didn't want to do that. And you're going to think, oh, he really liked it. If he just told you, I don't want to do it, it makes it easier. So if we lived on the plane where truth ruled, which is difficult, right? Because we're humans, it just makes for better relationships. People would respect each other more. There'd be less divorces. There'd be less conflicts in our lives because we are truthful to each other, honest with each other. And when I interview people and they walk away, I know them for life. I know everything. It comes back to me when I see them. They'll go, do you remember I said that? I said, I'll quote what they said. It's like, how did you remember that? Because I'm listening. I really am interested in other people.
In the interviews, the lifetime, shall we say, of interviews that you've conducted, do you find that people generally tell the truth? I mean, not factual truth, but transparency of truth, I guess, is the way, transparency of themselves when they're being interviewed by you.
They cannot pretend because they know I don't want that. They're not there to pretend. They know it's live. They know it's a personal interview. So they come personal. They'll cry. They have revelations during the interview. It's so impacting. It's so emotionally draining. After I interview someone for 5 or 6 or 7 hours, I can't even eat because I'm still processing. They have released. So they go and they're famished. You want to go eat? No. I need to go home and sleep.
It's an emotional investment on your side.
It is. Yeah. I always tease my husband, Bob. I just tell him my emotional quotient is much higher than yours. But that's because the work I do.
Yeah.
He's a CPA. He deals with everything in a square box.
Well, let's talk more after this break.
Okay.
This September, the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, Northern Marianas College, University of Guam, and Guampedia will host the 3rd Marianas History Conference in Saipan. The conference theme, One Archipelago, Many Stories, Milestones in Marianas History, highlights the deep and rich history of the Mariana Islands. It also bridges the political division of the archipelago, which dates to the late 19th century. The conference steering committee is now accepting abstracts under the following general categories: ancient history, including the results of archaeological research, early colonial history in the 17th and 18th centuries, colonial history in the 19th and early 20th centuries, World War II, recent post-war, and oral history and genealogical research. For more information, visit the Northern Marianas Humanities Council website at northernmarianashumanities.org. That's northernmarianashumanities.org.
Welcome back. We're speaking today with ethnographer and oral historian Rlene Steffy. Rlene, for those that may not know you on a personal basis, tell us a little bit about your family and your childhood and maybe how that helped make you the person you are today.
Well, I don't know that my growing up is fully responsible for that. I think that that your life experience forms you, right? Every step of your life, you encounter things. And that's what makes you who you are. But having said that, my mother and father, my mother is Frederica Flores Santos, and my father is Jesus Leon Guerrero Santos. So my mother's grandfather was one Ada here. Tatambodik is what we called him. And the reason that that was my mother's grandfather is not biological. It's because my grandfather, my mother's father, married Tatambodik's daughter Maria. And then before the war, she died. So my grandfather married my mother's mother, Mariquita, Maria Leon, Pangilinan, from the Kotla family. And so I have a lot of relatives here from the Flores family. My great-grandparents left Guam in 1896 as one of the first group of people to migrate to Micronesia, Yap and then Palau. Therefore, my grandfather, my mother's father, was born in Palau. And then he comes to Saipan, meets Tatambodik's daughter Maria, and eventually gets married and has one son, Edward Flores. Edward Flores is the father of former Mayor Donald Flores. He's my first cousin. And Eddie Flores and Angie Flores. My mom goes with her family back to Guam after the war, meets my father, and marries, and they had only 3 children. I'm the oldest of 3. I have 2 brothers, Philip and Frank, that follow me. So my mother is the oldest of 5 children of the second wife. And my grandmother and grandfather had a house here in Garapan, and she was a baker. She had a bakery, and they had the oven, the Spanish oven, the one looks like a
Hotnun
Ladrizu, which I also have a DVD on.
Yes.
And so, and it's dedicated to her. And so she had the barrel-shaped one because it was a commercial one. And then they had a Talanquiza ranch, and over there she also had a barrel-shaped one, and she baked. So that all came home to me as a child growing up because when they moved to Guam, they bought a piece of property on the beach in Agana Bay from Auntie Ignacia Butler, who's my grandmother's aunt. She was baking. She would bake in the morning. Her husband dies with 5 children, so she supplemented the income by baking. And
makes sense.
Yeah, and so I always had pantosta and all the good bakery stuff. But she didn't have the oven then, which is regular stove oven that she used. I was born and raised in Tamuning, and then when I was in junior high school, moved to Chalampago. So I went from in the city to the country where we had no chickens in Tamuning, and then all of a sudden we had chickens and pigs and goats and all kinds of things in Chalampago.
Was it culture shock?
It was huge culture shock for me. And an outhouse. We didn't have an outhouse in Tamuning.
Wow.
We had flushing toilets. We had running water. We had showers inside. In Chalampago, at my grandmother's house, we had the outhouse, and I used to hold the 2x4 frames out of fear that I'd fall through. As a kid, that's my reality.
Okay.
But then I went to George Washington, and super nerd. I mean, studious.
Really?
Oh my goodness, Catherine! I love to go to school. I like to study.
You like to learn.
I like to learn. I really do. I'm just hungry to learn, and my girlfriend said, you've got such a nerd reputation. Why don't you, let's go out and try for cheerleading. I was, cheerleading? I don't like to dance. I'm going to trip out there. Forget it. I made it. And I became a warrior cheerleader.
Well-rounded. You're a nerdy cheerleader.
Nerdy cheerleader. But, you do what you one thing that I have to say, I never turned down an opportunity. I don't care what it is. It's got to be, maybe I won't join the military. That's opportunity I never did. But I was actually convinced by my counselor to try to be a pilot because I had the skills for it. I had really good eyesight, analytical. I was really good at that kind of stuff. And I liked the flying aspect. So she said, go try, but too short.
That's what I was going to say.
Too short.
I was going to...
I pack a big gun, but I'm real short.
I know you got to have
I'm
all those
5'1".
physical, mental requisites.
I couldn't reach and then I didn't know how to swim at the time.
Oh.
And I said, never mind, I don't need to do this. So I didn't. So I wanted to be a lawyer. That was really my calling. I think I really wanted to go to law school, but my circumstances didn't allow for that.
So you chose communications.
I chose journalism, which is a very close cousin to law.
Out of all of your projects, it's almost like maybe asking which is your favorite child, but are there any that stand out to you as particular favorites?
If I had to do it all over again, I think that the most stimulating for me was being an investigative reporter at K57 Radio. And I'm good at finding things because I like to research, right? And I'm good at connecting dots. I'm good at organizing material. For example, when I did the investigation of the Motorola fiasco in Guam, I know it turns people's heads every time I say this.
No, give us the history on that.
Okay.
What is that?
I was hired by Motorola to investigate what was it at the time? To investigate a sole source procurement accusation against Motorola. I don't think, Catherine, they expected me to find anything.
So you were hired to appease the critics, or?
I'm not sure what they want.
Okay, what did you find?
Well,
and why was it rewarding for you?
Because it was a puzzle. Because it was like I needed to make sense of all this documentation. They opened they opened all the files to me, and of course I took the files and sat down and pieced it all together and found the pattern. It's patterns. I see commonality. I know how to group things really easily. It's not a work at all. It's just like,
It's your gift.
Yeah, it's a gift. That's right. So they hired me to do this. I sat down and I said to the manager, you got to return this money. They didn't buy anything. It was a procurement fraud. And so they sent somebody from Schaumburg out, and I sat down with her for about 5 hours. And at the end of that, she said, oh my goodness, you're the one that should be teaching me. But again, it's being able to see this, and I don't even know how to explain it. The day that the earthquake hit, I was supposed to be on that Continental flight at 4 o'clock. About 12 o'clock, I said to the general manager, we have to cancel our flight. We need to take the Northwest Orient flight because there's no way I'm done. I can't get on this flight. I need a little bit more time. So we canceled the flight, got booked on the Northwest flight, earthquake struck. That airplane was on the tarmac, ready to take off when that 8.1 earthquake struck. And I thought, the first thing I thought is, oh, great, I got time. This gives me more time.
You're just logical, aren't you?
Too much. No, really, that is a problem. Because people think that because I'm that way, that I don't have that I'm not feeling things, which I do. I just process it differently. And so I sat down and we started realigning the reports. I mean, really just totally focused and just writing. And I finished I think it was about 12:30. Ran home, threw everything in the bag, literally. I didn't fold, I just threw it all in, ran to the airport, got on the plane. I think it was the last one on the plane. Get in, I sleep on the plane. Thank God for that. I could sleep. I just can't stay awake. Get into Honolulu, nighttime. We have dinner, and we aim 9:30 and 10 o'clock. We're going to go to the office, right? Report in hand, walk into the office, and I'm seeing 3 vice presidents as I walk through. Everyone's greeting us. Okay, fine. We know it's all fake. We know they don't want to hear anything we have to say. I walk into the boss's office. He doesn't give me his face. His chair, the back of his chair is facing me. I'm walking in. The manager's behind me from Guam. He has his feet up on the windowsill. He's looking out at the bay. And he says to me, what did you find out? And I said, 3 vice presidents lead all to your desk, falsifying sales. He said, thank you, put the report on my desk. And I left. We walked down the elevator and the general manager goes, what happened in there? He was with me and he said, what happened in there? I said, now the cards will fall. We've done our job. They'll fall. There was a simultaneous sting, FBI sting, on Guam and Honolulu within that week.
How did it make you feel to break that story?
How does it make you feel when you're doing something? It's what we live for. That's media. That is journalism at its finest.
Fourth branch of government.
Fourth branch of government. We are the ones that look out for the corruption. You have to feel good that you're doing something right. And you know, people want to feel that way. Even them. Even them. Now, I will spare how it ended because it's not believable how it ended. But it ended. And they were removed from their positions. But imagine a simultaneous FBI sting on Guam and Honolulu. The same day. They literally went in and took all the warehouse documents and found it. It was all there.
Do you ever get that same sense of excitement in the work you're doing today, which is a lot of historical work and oral history and things like that? What is your where does your passion come from for the work that you're doing today?
It's like eating different kinds of things. They all taste good. But you like some more than others. For me, investigative journalism is like eating kamuti in coconut milk or spinach in coconut milk. You know, it's something I will always go to the table and grab. Whereas all the other stuff is like having red rice or, you know, barbecue chicken, or it's all satisfying. And I'm privileged to be able to do it.
Kind of related to that, in your latest project, Untitled Marianas, there was an extra show or segment that you did kind of exploring some of the facts, quote unquote, that we had taken for granted. And in your interviews and in your research for this documentary on Marianas history, you found some things that were didn't line up.
And that's human nature, right? Because again, we find that it depends on the person's interest. My interest is in the big picture. I'm not just interested that Magellan landed on Guam. I want to know why he came there. Circumnavigation of the world. Did he really kill? Why he killed? Were the Chamorros really innocent? Was it really a cultural difference? Were the Chamorros pushing the envelope? How did they know about that iron? Why did they know it was valuable? Why were they so desperate about it? Were they desperate about it? I mean, when they're depicted as taking iron off the ship, taking the captain's skiff, I can understand why a captain is going to be upset if you take his skiff. That's everything for him. He can't access land without that skiff. So that's a vital function of his boat. What I don't understand about Magellan is, why did he get involved in politics when he went to Manila? That's what he got killed. It's like, why, dude? Did you forget you're going back to Spain? You know? So human nature, the decisions that we make, put us in places that we might not want to be in. And unfortunately, that's what happened. But I'm always, you know, like I told you at lunch the other day, I'm the why kid. I'm never satisfied until my whys are answered. Why that is? I don't know.
Well, we're very excited about your latest project and all the projects that you've provided, really as a service to the people of the Marianas, to those interested in our history, the articles, the documentaries, the interviews. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with us before you go?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank Scott Russell, because every time he knows I'm up here, he calls you and says, "Can you interview her?"
And I would love to.
Yeah, and I'm really very appreciative of that. It gives me an opportunity to talk about what we're doing, and I really want the people of the Northern Marianas to understand that we are one people. We might have differences, but who else are our people? I can't go to Palau and say that. I can't go to San Diego and say that. When I come to Saipan, I'm home. When I go to Tinian, I'm home. When I'm in Luta, I'm home. You know, and I hope that that's how they feel when they come to Guam. You know, we're a little bit more populated, but it's home. And I want my kids to feel that, Catherine. I want my kids to know that they can traverse. They can go up and down this Mariana chain and be home. I've been to Pagan, Sagrigan, you know, Goat Island. You name it. I mean, I belong. I don't have a not belonging issue. I really belong here. And I'm grateful that when I meet people from Saipan, they make me feel belonged. And I like that. So I don't feel like I feel like I'm in another village.
It's wonderful to come home.
Yes, it is.
Great feeling.
Yes, it is. And can I share? Do I have time to share one?
Absolutely.
My brother Philip and I happened to be on Saipan at the same time, the strip. And his role here was to do research for my grandfather's properties. And Philip was very complimentary of the Department of Land Management here in Saipan. Within a half hour, they were able to pull out old documents about my grandfather and grandmother's properties. And that just blew him away. And my sister-in-law, Debbie, said, "Hey, can you come up here?" So I went up to the room. She goes, I have a surprise for you. And my brother Philip hands me this document. And on this document is my grandfather's handwriting, identifying who he is, identifying that he can speak English, and identifying that he is the owner of this property and sponsored by Juan Ada Tatambodik. And I thought, oh my goodness. And we were both overcome with emotion because we never met my grandfather. He died before we were born. But it validates everything he wrote. And my grandfather was a documenter. He wrote in English, Chamorro, German, Palawan, and what's the other one?
Yapis.
Yapis. That's it. Thank you. And he wrote things down. And because he wrote things down, we today can prove that we own these things or inherit it. My mom can inherit these things. Whether we can ever get it in our name is not relevant to us. It only validates the oral history that was passed down. And to see that. And I can say that I have a connection with this place now more than ever because there's proof. My grandparents' names are on those documents. It's proof. So thank you for being organized, Saipan. Thank you for the help at the land management. My brother was really impressed. You know, it's like they are organized, and that was great. Old documents, they couldn't even Xerox them.
Wow.
They were so old, yeah.
Wow.
So we took pictures of it. That's going to be wonderful for my mom. She's 84, going on 85 in October, and has passed on the administratics to Phil to be the administrator of the estate. So that's now his job.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart and sharing your time with us. And
Yeah.
we wish you all the best in your current and upcoming endeavors.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Our guest today has been Rlene Santos Steffy. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Harris.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.